Hey guys, Jimmy here, aka Palette for Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another issue of Mortal Realms magazine. We're on issue 14, so it's been 2 weeks since the last issue. We've got some great new models as well. So we've got the Dreadblade Harrows on this sprue here. They're pretty cool. 2 mounted hero units for your Nighthaunt army. I'm looking forward to getting these built and getting these painted. They're going to be cool. I've got some decent ideas as well for them, and then of course we've got the magazine. All good stuff. But before we jump into the magazine, as per usual, if you like these videos, please hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment down below with what you're getting on with in terms of your models, your painting, everything like that. And as per usual, you can always find me on the usual social media platforms as well, things like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can link me in one of your pictures and of what you've been painting up, and I'll check it out. And you won't be too bad. But let's jump into this. Right then. With the models, I've partially built them. They're kind of getting ready. I haven't done the entirety of it, and I haven't pushed fit them, and I haven't glued them just yet. And the actual riders are not fully assembled because it makes it life a lot easier to paint them if they're not fully assembled, in all honesty. But let's jump into the magazine and have a flick through. So, of course, you got information on the Dreadblade Harrows themselves. So each of these are officers who served directly under or served alongside great generals of renown. They were caught up by the Nighthaunt and Nagash and his armies, and became these cursed knights, essentially. And they serve directly under the Knights of Shrouds. Each Knight of Shrouds is a ghost of a military commander who betrayed their people and pledged an oath to Nagash. With these, the Dreadblade Harrows, they watched, 9 times out of 10, they watched their leader's betrayal and did not help or hinder them. So, they are now cursed to serve forever their treacherous lord and do all that kind of horrible work in between. So they are known for cutting off vulnerable, retreating warriors, killing sick, the ill, and stuff like that. And being general buggers about things. They have a cool ability though. They have the ability to disappear and reappear whenever they wish, and they also can take control of Nighthaunt hordes, or just ride side by side with their Knight of Shrouds, which is pretty cool, pretty different as well. They look really, really good, and they generally get a bit of good backstory as well. So, the backstory for the 2 that we've been given. So you got Malachir Quayle, who once marched alongside Edric Harsk, a general of great renown, serving as his lieutenant in a dozen battles and inflicting great defeats upon the legions of dead. When fate eventually caught up with Harsk and his men, the skeletal hordes ambushed their forces. Faced with defeat, the general threw himself upon the mercy of Nagash and was transformed into a Knight of Shrouds. Malachir, however, stood by as the treachery occurred and now serves as a Dreadblade Harrow, full of regret for his inaction. The second one, we've got Kryptos Sharn, who was once a chivalrous knight with nobility and honour in his veins. The kingdom he served under was invaded by the legions of Nagash under the command of a powerful soul-blight vampire lord. The war was long and brutal, eventually turning in favour of the dead. The vampire lord's armies besieged the capital city and waited for the living to starve to death. In despair, Sharn's commander turned traitor, opened the gates to the dead, and rather than attempt to stop the slaughter, Sharn just stood by and stood alongside his superior, and his soul was then claimed by Nagash. Then you got information on the Knights of Shrouds themselves. So they're in the actual kind of main lore and story. There's one Knight of main Knight of Shrouds, who is in Soul War's book, which is pretty decent. He's not too bad, and he's a bit different. He's a bit kind of more callous and a bit more brutal. So the Knights of Shrouds are former generals and war leaders who have betrayed their own armies and threw their lot in with Nagash, rather than be slayed by the endless armies of the dead. They still feel great guilt about their betrayal of their own kin and seek the distraction of battle in order to forget their treacherous past. These are really cool models. We're going to get one soon as well. The Knight of Shrouds, he's got that nice winged helm, he's got that really good long sword, and it looks pretty cool. And his steed actually has these great curled horns, which look really cool. They look really good, and he should be really good fun to paint him up, and you can match him up a little bit to pay kind of tribute to these Dreadblade Harrows if you want to. You can do things differently if you wanted to. You make it stand out a lot more. It's entirely up to you, of course. Then we go forward some more of history of the Mortal Realm. So the Forces of Chaos. So you've got their main kind of ever-chosen leader, Archaon. Blessed by the gods of Chaos gods, he rides his three-headed demonic mount, and each kind of head represents the different main Chaos demons. So Khorne, Nurgle, and Tzeentch. So pretty cool. And Archaon is this big brute who carries this really lovely long sword, and pretty cool. Definitely a nice model when you can get hold of him. And then of course you've got more information. So you've got mortals who have allowed Chaos to gain hold of their hearts and stuff like that. There are mortals from every race that support the Forces of Chaos, and they are known as Slaves to Darkness. So Slaves to Darkness, you can have multiple different ones. So you can have Chaos Warriors, and you can have just regular kind of tribesmen. So things like the so you can get these kind of like cool tribesmen that look pretty damn cool, and they'll serve alongside demons and different demons and chaos beings that come along with it, and they serve the will of their masters, whether that's Khorne, Tzeentch, or Nurgle, and there are others in between. For going through everything though, I mean, if you look at games like they've got the skirmish game Warcry. The idea behind Warcry is there are different bands. They don't always, not all of these bands know exactly which chaos god they worship. So some of them might worship Khorne, but not without knowing that they worship Khorne. They might worship Tzeentch without knowing that they're worshipping Tzeentch. They will know him by a different name, or not know their name at all. They'll just think they're celebrating the ruinous powers, essentially. Then came, of course, so we've got part 2 of the Stormcast Eternals. So this starts off with the Age of Sigmar and 1,000 storms and the Tempest being broken. So after long centuries of dominance from the Forces of Chaos, and the fact that Chaos claimed the vast majority of the mortal realms for their own, Sigmar completed it. Although his great work was not fully complete, he sent forth his Stormcast Eternals. So of course the Stormcast Eternals being the Forces of Azir, separated into all their storm hosts, and pretty damn cool models, and of course big heavy armoured. They're designed to take a beating and to dish out a massive beating of their own against Forces of Chaos. So you got a lot more information about them. So you got Azerheim's hosts, the besieging of the Black Rift of Klaxus, the Solemn and the Dead, so Shyish and stuff like that. So all to do with fighting alongside the dead, in some cases against the evil of chaos. So, and there's some great stories about things like that happening, especially from the Anvils of a Heldenhammer. So if you ever read the book Neferata, that one's pretty cool, and there's a bit more stuff about that. They also, things like the Heldenhammer Crusade. So Galmaraz, which is the big massive warhammer that Sigmar wields, was kind of lost and was found again in Shamon. So they had to kind of reclaim everything like that. And then of course the Awakening itself, going up against things like the Black Citadel and stuff like that. And yeah, so really cool stuff. A bit more information about the Mortal Realms and how the Age of Sigmar came to be, and of course the Age of Chaos and a bit more to do with the Age of Myth. Then you've got a battle that concerns the Dreadblade Harrows, of course. So Curse of the Hunter. So humans fled in their scores, struggling through mud, brush and briar. So So these are pretty cool. That image is really nice as well. Gives you an idea of what you can do with multiple of Sigmarite Mausoleum sets if you really wanted to, and you wanted to make a really cool battlefield or anything like that. So really good stuff. And then you got Kalmar the Accursed, so a different good old Dreadblade Harrows kind of backstory. So it gives you more to kind of put in behind your units. You can also name, I mean, the good thing with Warhammer is there is no right or wrong with a lot of it. It's open to a lot of interpretation. What you can do is you can, if you really wanted to, you can name your units, you can give them their own unique names, come up with their own backstory if you really wanted to, or you can just treat them as toy soldiers. It's entirely up to you. Now, you got the how to build, of course. It goes on about partial assembly here, which is a great tip. It does work really well. You can paint the undercloaks, which is the main thing with things like that as well, so it does allow you to get in there and get the paint going. You don't have to paint loads of detail on the inside because it's going to be shade and shadow quite a lot, so you can paint it black if you really wanted to, which is actually quite a handy tip. Then you've got, of course, painting the Dreadblade Harrows, the painting guide that they kind of go for. You don't have to do this follow this scheme if you do not wish to. It might be worth it though, it's entirely up to yourself. If you do want to do it, they suggest the usual Nilic Oxide over Corax White, then dry brush Corax White back over it, which by now you might be running low on Corax White because they use a lot of it. Using Cantor Blue, then Corn Red to kind of get all that detail, and they probably use a little bit of, do they use a little bit of gold? No, they use a Baron Black. But so they've not used any Stormhost Silver, and they've not used any the Retributor armour that you got, which you can use if you wanted to. You can use a bit of Mechanica Standard Grey on the base. I've done some bases in the past which are based on the model sculpted basis. Fairly easy to paint. You can paint them up, you can get a lot of detail into there if you really wish to, or you can leave it so there's not as much detail in there, so it doesn't distract from the rest of the model. Up to you. Then of course you got your play game, so the Ghost Riders, and not to be confused with a Marvel character. So you need the large battle map for this, and you see the first part of your Sigmarite Mausoleum. You need a Gryph-hound and 5 Castigators if you're going to do through this play. So get it all set up. So of course your Dreadblade Harrows, they have their cool little sets and everything like that. So for weapons, we've got the Dreadblade, of course, which is a pretty cool weapon, and they have ghostly hooves and teeth, because of course for horses. So add 1 damage to the damage characteristic of this model's Dreadblade if it made a charge move in the same turn. So if you've charged, you add 1 to its attack, so it will damage more from when you're charging. So if you charge in and it's like it's taking a swipe as he goes, it will do more damage to your kind of enemies. Pretty cool, not too bad. They can move 12 inches at a time, and they have 5 wounds, and it's 4+ save to save them if you wanted to. They can ignore rend as well, so which is pretty good. They can fly, and they are a hero unit, so which gives it a bit more detail. Then of course you've got everything to do with Castigators and Gryph-hound. So they have a heavy stock, and they have a thunderhead great bow, and the Gryph-hound has its beak and claws and can use that darting attacks and everything like that, and moves 9 inches at a time if it wants to, which is pretty cool. It can make a 6-inch retreat move after its attacks have been resolved as well. Then of course it goes through all the turns and everything like that as per usual, so charge moves and stuff like that. So pretty cool, pretty decent way of playing it, and it gives you some more information about how to kind of get through with your new mounted units and stuff like that. So that's pretty much it for this week's issue. Of course, we've got the next issue in 2 weeks' time to look forward to, which is another part of the Sigmar Mausoleum. Just walls and the statue. Should be really good fun though to paint up and get going. If you haven't painted, if you like me and you haven't painted your rest of your Sigmar Mausoleum or anything like that, it might be worth, as long as the weather's good, when you get that, make sure you get a can of spray paint. Far easier. Get some grey spray paint. You can get it from B&M, Wilko's, Halfords if you wanted to, or directly from Games Workshop when they reopen, and you can get painted up and you can get them all ready, base coated, and makes life a lot easier. The week after, we've got more Stormcast reinforcements, so a couple more 3 more Secretors and 2 more Castigators, the same as what we had the other week. So it's not too bad, but it's more units to get painting, and so make sure you're getting ready and in the mood for that. But otherwise, guys, that is pretty much it for this week's issue. Hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, as always, hit the like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And for now, I'll see you later. Bye bye now.